There seem to be quite some complaints from students about the slow movement of the whole process. They're saying that they've gotten here around 2 a.m. and until now they haven't gotten any assistance. So what do you have to say about that?
That would definitely not be the truth. Yes, I would agree that there are some learners that come very early because they really want to beat the queues. However, our process, once you get in, and you come to the first point of enrollment, we have 4 points during the enrollment process. The whole process can take you between 7 and 10 minutes. The biggest problem that we do have is that most of the candidates that come and want to enroll for subjects don't come prepared with everything that is required as specified in our information campaign, which is they need to have copies of their certificates, copies of their identity documents, etc. And as a result of that, sometimes they queue up at the wrong centers. The onus lies on students to find out which subjects are offered at which centers. Not all subjects offer not all centers offer the same subjects, and therefore it's important to verify first to confirm the subjects that you have interest in is in fact offered at the center that you are queuing for. The other thing that you also find is that people don't stick to their spots. Some of them don't have their certified copies. They need to run out to go and make copies, and then they come back then. And people that they find at the queues, again, these arguments started. We have tried to introduce a numbering system. As an institution, we need to have access to first come or on a first come first served basis. So sometimes we tell people that we can only accommodate 100 people per center per day. Now we have planned to enroll for the 12 centers in Windhoek 1,200 learners per day for the 3-week period. But when you tell them that we've already reached the quota for the day for that particular center, they refuse to go back home. It would not help for us to allow everybody in and people wait until 5 and then you cannot be assisted, whilst we know that it takes approximately 7 to 10 minutes to deal with one learner. Hence you can only deal with about 100 to 110 people, and therefore you give them numbers for that particular capacity that you can handle for that day and request the rest to come back the next day. So yes, there have been some challenges. It is day one. After today's enrollment process, we are going to regroup as a group of enrollment staff and see as to how we can further improve on the service that we are delivering. But our staff, our part-time staff are doing a really great job in assisting our people.
You mentioned that there are quite some challenges. Maybe if you can just outline the couple of challenges that you as the staff are experiencing right now during the registering process. As
I've just said, a lot of them come unprepared with the required documentation that enables you to then be registered for a particular subject. There are also some, you must know that our registration process and what we permit learners to register for is, we work under the directive of the Ministry of Education. So you find people that come and they want to do 5 subjects as the first time sitter for that particular grade, which is, you can't allow that. So it's also just about people not acquainting themselves with what our requirements are and what is possible and what is not possible. Sometimes people are so demanding because they don't want to leave, their scared spaces might be taken up by others. But I mean, if you are dealing with 9,000 students in Windhoek alone, which is where we are now, you are bound to have challenges. It's really for us just to ensure that we put the mechanisms in place to know how to deal with these challenges as they're coming up. So it would basically be managing crowds, asking people to go back, telling them that we have reached our quota for that respective day, and people refusing to go back because of the fear of, but when I come back the subject might be finished. But we are managing it.
Are we likely to see more students enrolling for NAMCOL this year compared to last year?
Our demand is ever increasing. You must also know that the intake of NAMCOL is dependent on how our part-time students performed in the preceding academic year, as well as those coming from the mainstream. Now, as an institution, you need to start your planning processes very early in the year. So let's say around June this year, we'll have to start projecting and planning for the next academic year. And at that time, you need to make projections and estimates based on the capacity that you can handle. It's dependent on the staff that you need to recruit, that needs to give lessons. It depends to the infrastructure where these lessons would be given. And you know that we are heavily dependent on state schools. But increasingly also you have now found that a lot of schools have sessions throughout the day. And therefore they've pushed NAMCOL down from 3 to 4, from 4 to 5, which creates a challenge for our learners, because a lot of these learners needs to walk from to and from their tutorial centers, and sometimes they just don't come. So I don't think NAMCOL would ever be in a situation unless we are resourced adequately to be able to meet the demand that is out there in the market. Therefore, we encourage people to come as early as possible to avoid disappointments.
Thank you so much. Any last words?
I would just like to encourage everybody that is coming to ensure that you have all your required documents. We know what we need. You do need a certified copy of your identification document, whether it's your ID card, your passport or your birth certificate, and a certified copy of your latest statement of results or of your original certificate. Ensure that you have a passport photo, the correct fees that you need per subject. For grade 12 we're charging 290, for grade 10 we're charging 170 and a non-refundable $90 registration. We would also like to encourage our prospective learners coming to our enrollment points countrywide to try and leave their valuables at home during enrollment periods, because all these learners wants to come and get spaces here. They come with their tabs and their phones and all these things. But where you have a lot of people coming together during any process, criminal elements always comes up. So you would have instances of all these criminal elements coming and robbing our kids. So we encourage them to be diligent at all times, work in groups and organize so that they can be able to protect each other. As an institution, we have made the necessary precautions to appoint security companies across the country that then assist us to protect the lives of our learners and the property of the institution.
Yeah, maybe just a little bit about the last date of registration so that everybody can know when is the last day.
We have started today on the 15th. We'll be running for a 3-week period until the 7th of February. But as I've said, as much as we have a 3-week registration period, we can only take in learners for the number of subject spaces you have available. So if by Friday the capacity for English for a particular center has been reached, enrollment for English for that center stops, and then you continue with whatever subjects are still available. And that's why we encourage people not to wait until the last minute. Come as early as possible so that you are able to access enrollment or get enrolled for subjects that you really desire to then do with NAMCOL.
Last question. Approximately how many students can enroll for a certain subject? Is there maybe a certain number? You can say maybe 300,000 students, just an example, can enroll for English subject, for example.
Let me use the example of English second language grade 12. We have the capacity of 18,000 learners countrywide. So the total number that we're looking at for this year is between 45 to 46,000 learners that we can take for both JSC and NSSC. But then it's also dependent from the various centers that we have countrywide. In Windhoek alone, we expect to enroll between about 9,000 plus learners between the two grades.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.